Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, today we're going to talk about something interesting. What is HiFi? And you'll have to excuse the mess. We've been super busy here in the shop. Just finished up a couple of amps that we're shipping out. Got one more almost done. So, yeah, I just decided not to clean up today and do the video. So, here we are. Anyway, question. What is HiFi? And get a lot of arguments from folks on both sides of this thing or from different directions about what exactly it is we're trying to do. And some people say, well, you're trying to produce something that's pleasing to listen to and, maybe is familiar to you the way it sounds. Other people are saying you're supposed to reproduce exactly what is on the source material, 100%. Shouldn't be any deviation from it. And I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle here. Maybe even more towards the size of just producing something that will sound pleasing to us. And I'll use an example here. People say the recorded material is exactly the way the artist intended it to be listened to. Go listen to Yes, 90125 or what, I think that's what it was. Anyway, that 90 whatever, yeah, that album. I saw that in concert years ago when they were on tour doing that. And in concert, the bass was so intense. And I mean, it was basically just the bass guitar. It was overpowering. I mean, it vibrated the whole auditorium. And this was like the Omni in Atlanta. I mean, this was a giant stadium. It vibrated the building. The bass was so intense. Okay, you listen to the vinyl or the digital version of it, and the bass is turned way down. I mean, you would have to EQ the crap out of it for it to even begin to sound close to what it was like. Or put your sub up to it and turn the sub up to the moon to get the bass like the live recording or the live concert was. So, which one did they want you to hear? Did they want you to hear it like the album? And they just EQ'd this whole sound check and the stage performance wrong? Or is the studio recording wrong? Or is it two different presentations? And that's why I kind of push back against this whole idea of, the source material's perfect the way the artist intended, and you should respect that, when a lot of these artists don't even respect their own recordings. And like I've heard other bands live that, that I'm not saying like just the performance wasn't spot on, because of course a live performance, there's going to be a little bit of variation between what they play in the studio and what they do on stage with a lot of bands. Some bands are not. Some bands, they just nail it wherever they go, and they're that precision. But other bands, there's a little bit of variation. And, I'm not talking about that. But their sound that they put out in an actual concert is sometimes nothing like what comes out of the studio. And I'm not sure how much creative control the artists actually have on the vinyl or the source material or the recording. Or is that handled with their managers and handled by the folks that are doing the mixing, and they're like, just leave this to us. We got this. We know what people are going to like. And like that Yes album that I was talking about, if they had EQ'd it the way the concert sounded, it would have sounded like crap played over the radio, because it wouldn't be able to reproduce it like that. And honestly, most sound systems can't get down into that deep bass that they had going on at that concert. So did they EQ it so it'll sound good on the radio so they can sell records? And like, I know that for a while they were EQing vinyl so it would sound good on a jukebox. And they knew that jukeboxes had a limitation, a limited bandwidth of the music, their frequency response they could play, so they were EQing stuff so it would sound good on a jukebox, so people would go buy the 45s off of what they heard on the jukebox. And is that what the artist really intended? So I think we really have to take that whole accurate reproduction with a grain of salt. And unless you've heard the band in concert, you probably don't know really what they were supposed to sound like or what they intended. And when you're talking about some of these jazz recordings that were done in the 50s, anybody that heard that's probably dead now. And so there's not anybody that heard, some of that old Blue Note jazz stuff when it was being played live by those people. And so what do you go by? You go by what sounds good. Use another example. Got interested again, and I heard it before. I'd forgotten how good it was. The Steely Dan album, Aja, or H-E-A, or Aja, or I don't know, however you pronounce that. I listened to it on streaming, and it was like, yeah, that's going to be good. And it sounded good on streaming. It was actually a pretty good digital rendition of it, as I remember. And I got online and started looking, I think, Steve Huffman, something like that. I Google searched, like, what's the best pressing of? It usually sends me to that forum. And everybody said, like, this 1006 AB first edition was the best pressing ever. And even these later ones are, they're too hot or they're too something. And, you really want to hear what sounds the best, find one of those. Find a clean one of those from 1977, which is, I'm not going to do the math, that was a long time ago. So, found what was supposed to be like a super clean first edition. Rarely played, no damage to it, and ordered that. And then I also ordered the one on Amazon that they have right now for $30. And I paid like almost $60 with shipping for this, pristine first edition copy. Because I'm going to experiment with this. I don't want to get a worn out copy to be testing, right? So the Amazon one that came first, put it on, man, it sounds good. Nice and crisp, details, the top end's like sparkly. It just fills the whole frequency response. And I was thinking, wow, if, they're saying that the first edition's better than this is going to really be insane. Well, the first edition got here, and to me, it sounds flat. I mean, it doesn't have this lively sparkle that the new edition does. And maybe that's why they were saying it sounds too hot to those people. But to me, the new mastering sounds better. And so, which one is authentic? I mean, did Steely Dan want it to be this kind of muted sounding thing? And do people think that sounds better because that's what they remember listening to for hours in their youth? And this other one sounds different to them, and so they don't think it's, quote, as good? At the end of the day, play the one that sounds the best to you. And I will say the streaming version sounds more like this new edition that I got than the OG vinyl. And like, here they are. This is the OG vinyl, and this is the new one from Amazon. And I'll put the link below for this. Like I said, this is only $30 for a brand new one, and it's one of the 180 gram nice audiophile type thing. And this is the ABC Records, the AB 1006. It's supposed to be the gold standard of that album. And honestly, I like the new one better. Found the same thing when I was listening to some of the older Yes albums, like Yes Fragile. That's one of my favorites, with Roundabout, some of that stuff. And, it's just a really cool album. But the vintage vinyl that I got just sounds kind of flat and muddy. And I mean, yeah, on the systems that we used to listen to this stuff on, it sounded great, but they weren't really sharp, top shelf kind of stuff. And I think my ears have improved as far as hearing details and, what I would say is hi-fi. And so I just ordered a Kevin Gray from Coherent Audio, did a remix of Yes Fragile, and got it upstairs. Haven't been able to spin it yet, but I'm excited. I bet it's going to knock it out of the park. I haven't seen anything from Coherent Audio that wasn't just out of this world. So, anyway, that's kind of my take on hi-fi. What it is, what it's not. Going to try to do another video this week about solid state versus tubes. And that's too deep a subject to get into on the second half of a Monday monologue. So we'll save that for later this week. But kind of got some conclusions that I've come up with on that as well. And like when's one's appropriate, when's the other appropriate. And, if you're going to go down this road or that road, why you should do it. And I think that'll be an interesting one. Got some ideas on, I think it's Audioholics did a interview with him and another guy, and I'll put that in the link probably in this video, so you can go ahead and watch it before you see my take on what they were saying. And I agree with a lot of what they were saying, but I've got a little bit of different spin on it just from being more on the tube side of things than I think they are. So that's kind of my monologue rant this week. It wasn't much of a rant, was it? Just talking about hi-fi and what it is. I think that's part of what the whole digital versus vinyl thing, people are like, oh, it should be an accurate reproduction and digital can do that better. Yeah, there's probably people who are always going to have their opinion about all that stuff. So anyway, I do want to say that some of you guys were right about being concerned that getting into building these amps to sell to people would slow down, the projects that we're doing on the channel. And I apologize to all you YouTubers that was the case. And I think I'm going to be getting to a point where I've kind of settled in to just a steady flow of stuff to do rather than having just this huge pile of stuff that I got to get done. I've actually caught up the orders from January and finishing up the ones from February. There's not too much that came in April, and then got one order for March. So hopefully I'll get these February orders cleaned up soon, because I think it's going to end up being, there was kind of a rush of people at first that were, people have been asking me for a long time to put stuff up for sale, that they were all excited about it, and now it's going to slow down to a trickle of maybe, I'm thinking an amp or two a month, which, is easy enough for me to then do, and then also be able to work on some new projects. And got these XLR sockets here. I want to start playing around with balanced audio. And then got KT88 monoblocks. Got the parts here to work on that. And I know I've gone over all the projects that I've got parts here for, so I'm not going to regurgitate all of that info. But hopefully I can dive into doing some more fun projects here soon. And they may end up turning into stuff that people want. And I really haven't even sat down and done much on my website. I think I've got like one little page showing a picture of my EL34 amp and just says, email me if you're interested. I need to do, like a product page with all the specs and with the, show the testing graphs and explain what it is and what it isn't. And do the same thing with like the color preamp and with my phono stage. And I do have a stack of, sitting here right behind me, these gray boxes. Those are chassis for the phono stages. I want to get like a batch of 10 of those fabbed up and get them off the powder coat. And then I've got maybe 5 or 6 of the boards here that I could populate up and get some of those pre-built. And then if any of you guys wanted to just buy a fabbed up chassis so you could build your own, hit me up with an email about that. So anyway, that's kind of what we got going on this week. And like I said, I need to clean up my shop. It's a freaking wreck. But I've always been that kind of a person. When I'm working, I'm not neat. My tools end up everywhere, and it looks like a bomb went off when I'm done. And then I clean everything off, and then we start the process over again. So I thought I'd just, instead of neatening everything up, just kind of do a video of like, this is what my shop looks like while I'm working. So anyway, hope you're enjoying my content. Hope you're enjoying my channel. If you are, please subscribe. Please like the video. Thanks to all you Patreon supporters and other folks that, when you find stuff on my YouTube channel that's really valuable to you, I'm just always blown away how generous some of you folks are of just dropping donations on my website that, hey, your content really helped me out or helped me avoid a purchasing mistake or whatever. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So I want to throw that out there, and we'll see you next week for the Monday Monologue.